Abigail. Good evening, everyone. I'm sure we're all doing well this evening, and even if we're not doing so well, hopefully at the end of this webinar, right, we've shifted your energy and given you more productive and meaningful things to think about. Okay, it's my pleasure to be here to be speaking with you all, to share with you, just a little bit of what I have learned for myself as a person, as well as the things that I have had to over the years sort of help my team members go through and share with them and coach them as they go on this journey of the self. Okay, so excited. Hope this is a meaningful time for you. I'll look forward to receiving feedback when we get to the Q&A sessions. Okay. All right. So how do you become indispensable talent? With a show of hands, either if you just, if you raise your hand or if you put that emoji in the chat room, can everyone sort of give me a sense as to where they are? If you have within 3 years of work experience, let's just see that quick show of hands. Okay. 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 So we're all kind of within, what we'll call the being an early career professional, right? And so if you want to use that in terms of time, you're looking at you spent within 1 to 3 years in the workforce, right? Okay. So great. So I'm going to be directly speaking to people who belong in that category, early career professionals, and we're going to be talking about how you can become indispensable talents, right? Going to learn what Gorik Ng, who's a writer, calls the unspoken rules, and he has a book of the same title. And so I'm going to actually be bringing you some of his content that I found apt. There's really no need to go outside of that. He went on an amazing journey of the self, and that's something that I'm going to keep on repeating, and I'll clarify what that means as we go along, right? And not only did he develop himself, but he decided to write a book about it, and so that everybody gets the benefit of his experience. And this really is the key thing that you should be getting in your early career years, right? So we're going to go into that in this session. Okay, so we're going to start off with just talking about a little bit of career theory to sort of help you understand that, right, from the principles and objectively, so you know how to cite yourself within your journey. And then we'll go into what these unspoken rules are and how you can practice them. So what is a career? Right, it's your progress through learning, through work, and through other aspects of life. But in my own words, your career is just a collection of competencies and work experiences that can be measured in objective and subjective ways. You're the one who knows when you go to a meeting, things you picked out of it. So oftentimes the things you're picking as you go along might not be evident to all, but you just know, oh wow, I like the way this person communicates. I like the way this person is able to articulate their thoughts, and it's something you pick up. So again, that journey of the self, right? Because oftentimes we think what we should be doing is benchmarking with other people and being in some sort of competition where you say, oh, I want to be better than this other teammate so that, I'm the first to be called upon, or I'm the one whose work gets recognized. I would actually be encouraging us not to do that. Not that it's not a helpful way of setting a barometer to sort of, place yourself, but really you're not in a competition. You're in a journey of yourself. Okay? And this idea about how your career is a collection of competencies also lends itself to a principle, which if you watched the video for this webinar, I'm sure you heard about the term called being a generalist, right? But even if you're not a generalist, your career is just going to be made up of a collection of competencies that you pick up in all the work experiences you have, both formal and informal. And I'd like to mention that at this point, because whenever we say work experiences, we always think about formal employment. But oftentimes we're volunteers in our churches, we're part of other social groups where we are picking up quite useful competencies. So we should also count those two as valuable on our journey. Okay. So what's career theory? What are the types of career according to theory? The first is a traditional career, right? This is when you think about your parents and their parents, this is most likely the type of career they had. Worked in one organization. If you know people who work in public service for the government, this is the type of career they have, right? It's linear, it's upward, it's stages, the levels, everything is sort of going down a path, right? And workers in traditional careers, they follow that pathway. So you have your promotions, you have your salary increases, there's seniority, there's tenure. Education is still a little bit like this, especially with the whole idea around tenure and seniority. And you're going from, you're climbing up the different levels and the different ladders. Then there's also the boundaryless career, where we began to see that shift away from traditional, where we don't have that sense of security anymore. The focus is more on skills that are transferable. You began to see things like job rotation coming up in the terminology of the workplace or in organizations, where you can be here, they move you to a different department, because it was about the skills you had and that they were transferable, not only within an organization, but across organizations and also across industries. Okay, so there are certain careers before that where it's just cited in a particular industry. Sales was one of them. Sales was a big one. Especially when you think about pharmaceutical sales, where that's just your niche, But these days, people are able to transfer skills across industries as well. And then we have the final one, which is the protean career, which is the one where you can argue that we're all moving to. And especially with startup culture, it's more about career development, right? It's more about seeking opportunities that align with your life goals, your life dreams, and you're chasing work-life balance. You're looking for flexible work arrangements, not necessarily chasing the typical things of salaries or job titles. You're looking at work as more so as something that fuels the life you actually want to live. So why is it important to know all these things? Well, if you're trying to figure out your career path, and you're trying to figure out what you're building towards, it's helpful to know if you're more of a traditional person, or if you're more of a boundaryless person, or if you're more of a protean person, so that you're not a traditional person who has gone and gotten employment in a startup, and then you're wondering why there seems to be a misalignment, because there is something called the psychological contract, right? In as much as you sign your physical contract, you also have in your mind some contracts you sign with employee, and all it just means is that you have certain expectations as to what work should be like, as to what this employment I'm in, what it will do for my career. And if you put yourself in the wrong place, you might begin to have that friction of, well, this is not what I thought it would be, and I dare say you might begin to think is a wrong workplace, is a toxic workplace, but it's just really about the type of career that you find yourself in. So it's important to understand these things so that you can be intentional about where you are right now, be aware, be intentional about where you are, and then you can also navigate to where you want to go to. Okay? So where are you really if you're within the first 3 years of your career? You're in between 1 and 2. You might be at 2 where you've figured it out and you're saying, okay, good, this is the pathway, let me try and build here for a few years. Or you might be more at 1 where you just have a lot of interest and you're just picking up skills and you're seeking out new opportunities, and you might be somewhere in between. Again, it's helpful to know where to site yourself so that there's awareness, there's intentionality, and then there's navigation towards. Okay? And that's the purpose of knowing these things. So this now takes us to how do I now become indispensable? Wherever it's on my journey that I am at, how do I become indispensable? And so leaning on, the work of Boric, right? He says, he identifies two people in organizations, right? Person A, person B. Person A is the person we all want to be and who we admire. And person B is the person who hasn't figured it out, right? Is struggling, gets put on a performance improvement plan, doesn't get promoted, it quits or changes jobs a lot of time. What's going on? What's that difference, right? And why is it there not only a difference, but why is there upward progress for person A and downward progress for person B? When you're an early career professional, you have two things to offer anyone who's employing you: your attitude and hard work. We're speaking to attitude when we say you should also be learning. That's great. But you should be on learning curves. Okay. Oh, I've identified communication is a thing for me. I'm on my communication learning curve. Personalized to you, you know where the peak is, you know what the trajectory is, you know how fast you want to be moving, how slow you want to be moving. Okay. So that's the first type of attitude you should have. That attitude of wanting to learn is called high growth needs strength. Okay, everybody take a note of that. It's an actual thing. High growth needs strength. And you can quickly Google that to see what it means. But it's just basically someone who is motivated by it, always learning and always developing. Okay, and that's what differentiates a person A from a person B. The second attitude you need to have, and I'll actually place this attitude first, is not taking things personal. And it's quite an important attitude to have in the place of work, because work is not personal. As personal and up close and upfront as it may feel, it's not. And that's why sometimes you think, oh, there's a misalignment between what organizations say and what they do. They say we're a family, but they don't behave like a family, Recently, there's a lot of clamor around, and it's not even just recently, it's quite a popular thing. They say, no, don't kill yourself at work, because 1 hour after you leave, they are filling your role. Well, yes, the business has to go on. Work has to continue. So don't take things personal. Is to recognize that your workplace is sacrosanct, right? And work comes first. But it is also so that you don't show up as yourself to work. And what do I mean by that? Let me use Abigail as an example, right? She shouldn't be showing up as Abigail in front of me. She should be showing up as, for the purposes of this webinar, right? The moderator of the webinar. So perfect. Let's use this webinar as a context. She shouldn't be showing up as Abigail on this webinar. She should be showing up as a moderator, her role. Showing up as Abigail means that if she currently has a headache, we all know she has a headache. If she's hungry, she hasn't had lunch or, a snack, we all know she hasn't had a snack. If me and her had a disagreement 5 minutes before this webinar, everybody knows, there's some friction between. That's showing up as Abigail. But showing up as a moderator means coming here, being professional, having rehearsed for, everything that she needs to do, having the presentation set up, guiding us through this experience, being responsible for introducing the energy levels. But then also doing it in the way that only Abigail can do it. So it's not that there isn't a place for your uniqueness, but professionalism comes first, right? So oftentimes that's the slight misalignment there. People show up to work as themselves, as you, with how you grew up and all your perspectives and all your thoughts and all your feelings, but your manager is talking to you as your role. So one of the hats I wear is HR manager, right? So if I'm correcting you, I'm giving feedback to the HR analyst, not you as an individual. And in that moment, for you to take it as yourself, will be first of all taking it incorrectly. And then we'll be placing limits and handles on yourself that are unnecessary. So you feel personally attacked by feedback. And your manager is not personally attacking you. And I say these managers rarely have a personal agenda around you. Rarely, very rarely. The ones that do are the ones that get elevated to the status of horrible bosses, right? And personally, that get elevated to the status of witchcraft. Because if for you to have anybody in your mind really intentionally is deep. Managers are more concerned about work and standards and getting you to fulfill your role, right? And getting you to and coaching you through and just getting the work done. Okay, but let's progress further. So what then does it take? How do I move from person A to person B? Sorry, from person B rather to person A. So according to Berg, right, it's about three things. Competence, can you do your job well? And this is not as mysterious as we may think, because I said, oh, all you have is your attitude and hard work, and you might not have the knowledge, skills, and ability yet, and that's what competence is knowledge, skills, and abilities. But attitude will trump all those things, because if I know that you have an attitude to learn, you have an attitude to receive feedback, then I can help you on that learning journey. And you don't have to know everything. There's this whole imposter syndrome thing, I think deserves a mention here. You know, where you feel like, oh, you're a fraudster because you learned something just 5 minutes before you said it. No, you're doing what you're supposed to do. If the first time you used a word or you came across a word was because you knew, oh, I'm about to enter this presentation, I'm to present to my manager, let me go look for this fancy word, and you use it, and something at the back of mind is telling you, shield, boropose, oh, you are really forming. No, you did what you're supposed to do. Right? So competence is a gradual thing. So if you are learning, that is what you're supposed to do. You're not supposed to be in this state where you have it all, you know it all, you figured it out. No, because in your role, you're primarily a problem solver, and you will forever be solving problems, right? You will forever be encountering things where you need to think about what's the approach here, what's the tactic here. So it's a constant journey. So as long as you can boldly say, I can figure things out, that's where you're supposed to be. Okay? So competence, can you do your job well, is even if you don't know, you can figure it out, right? And then obviously over time, you have your domain of knowledge, of skills and abilities that you're great in and that you're doing well in. Are you committed? Is a big one, because you can be competent but not committed. Are you excited to be here is how he phrased it, right? It's quite important to be committed to what you're doing, even if it's not what you want to do. But it's that principle of if you're going to do something, do it well, otherwise there's no point. Even if it's not what you want to do, but it's in front of you, might as well do it well. There's value in doing things well and finishing well and doing them right, okay? And then the other one is compatibility. Do you get along with your teammates? Again, this has got nothing to do with whether you actually like these people you're working with or not. Be professional. Show up as your role, not as yourself. As yourself, you and this person can never gel in life. But as HR analyst and HR manager, you must be compatible. Okay? Don't take things personal. There's absolutely no need to. You don't have to be friends with these people, right? I think, let me say it in this way. If you are in a workplace where your colleagues are also your friends, that's amazing, but it's not an absolute necessity. There's still things like common courtesy, like professionalism, like show up as your role, not as yourself. Okay, so you need to be demonstrating competence so that people trust you with what they give to you. You need to be demonstrating commitment so that people want to invest in you. You're excited about the things you do. You're known as somebody, if you give this person something to do, they will follow it through to the end. They're the ones who are coming back to follow up on you to say, oh, this is how far I've gone with this. They're the ones who are following up with you to say, can we try and do this in another way, right? And show compatibility, that you are personable, that you understand teamwork, and that there's never a time that will catch you on the bad side. I mean, it happens, yes, but you still respond like a professional even when you're obviously having a bad day. Okay? So It boils down to, are you reliable in how you do your job? You're trustworthy, you're reliable, you're always showing up. And are you promotable? Can you be trusted with more abilities? Okay, but to go directly to some helpful tools, right, as to how to become indispensable. We've talked about your attitude, we've talked about hard work. You need to be moving from what I call level 1 to higher levels. And I'm going to show you what I mean by level 1. For Gorick, he says you need to move from executing. Executing is just basically just receiving instructions, to strategizing, to being the one who is thinking, and also coming up with the actions that need to be taken. You need to move from asking to suggesting. And not that it's a bad thing to ask or to have questions. In fact, you should have questions. You should always be curious. You should always critique things, right? If something is presented to you, try to understand the outcome. And how can you do that? Ask questions of your manager. But I will show you, why you shouldn't just remain at the level of asking questions. You should go from just gathering information. So you've done research, you've gathered information, but you haven't made sense of it for the outcome, right? And you've gone from following to giving direction yourself. So the first one is executing, right? What do you do when you're on a project? A lot of us are here. I'm not even going to bother to do this number one because I want to believe that we are not here. We're not people who react when we're giving instructions to say, hey, but that's not my job. I'm not supposed to be doing that. It's not part of my... Because what this means is that you never expose yourself to new skills, especially based on the principle of being a generalist. A generalist is kind of someone who always says yes to everything within reason. But you're saying yes to exposing yourself to different perspectives, different types of problems. You're picking up new competencies, right? You're picking up change and, being adaptable. And that's quite a useful skill. I always give the example of, look at 2020 and with COVID. The organizations that survived were the people who knew how to adapt. I mean, who are you going to tell COVID? Were you going to tell COVID, oh no, this is not my thing, I don't know how to do this? You adapt. You had no choice, right? Okay, so I'm not even going to address this level 1. I think oftentimes we find ourselves here, at level 2. You smile, you nod, you take the instruction, you say, yes, I can do it. But for me, the least anyone should be is here, where you clarify. So when you're giving an instruction, clarify. And that's just simply saying, okay, great. This is what I heard you say. This is what I'm about to go and do. Is that right? Here's why this is important. Because we are able to have a conversation and an exchange of ideas at that point. You simply just saying that sentence to me, already I'm able to pick out how you think, how you process, how you comprehend. Comprehension is quite key. So I've given you an instruction, but it doesn't necessarily mean that what I said and what I meant was what you understood. So you giving me that immediate feedback, I realize, okay, this is the level of comprehension. This is how she understands. This is how she communicates. The next time I'm telling you something, I remember that and I tailor it to where you are at. But don't be the person where we've had a 1 hour, 2 hour meeting and we say, any questions? You don't have any questions. Any comments? You don't have any comments. Whether, for whatever reason that might be, whether you feel like, oh, I have a question, but I don't want to be the one in the room that didn't get it. It's better you let us know immediately that you didn't get it, and then we can quickly go over that hurdles together, than for you to go offline. Offline means you're now at your desk in front of your laptop and you're struggling, you didn't get it, you spent hours, you produced some sort of result only for your manager to tell you, this is not what I wanted. So you save yourself that time and energy, and also the feeling bad and feeling like, oh, I did not understand, or I don't get it, or can I actually do this work? Spare yourself all of that and just immediately give feedback, But you should go from there, from clarifying to contemplating, where it is that after you've clarified, you're now also able to bring up options. If you understand the outcome, if you understand the direction, if you understand where we want to get to, you can think about it and say, maybe we should do it in this way. And if you say that to your manager is most likely going to what? Confirm or modify. To say, yes, exactly, that's what we should be doing. Or to say, okay, no, maybe add this to that, take away this, do this in this way. Over time, what does that do to you? That inspires confidence in you. Because you would find out that most of the times, the thing that you're suggesting that we do, your manager says yes to. So you get to that point where you realize, oh, I know this thing. And most likely what I'm guessing is what it's going to be. And we can quickly go over that hurdle and get to where you're now the one who is the one suggesting options. You're the one who knows the lay of the land. You're the one who knows everything, right? And it's now a matter of, I just give you the instruction, no need for explanation. We get it, we move. Okay? There's a popular saying of the best employees receive instructions in 2D. So that's, two-dimensional, right? And give results in 3D. And you can even increase the numbers. Okay? When you have questions, how do you phrase them? How do you go from asking to suggesting? Again, the least you should be at is at number 3. Oh, don't ever come and say, what is this thing? I call them Google level questions. Don't come and ask me for definitions. Don't come and ask me for types of things, because Google can answer that. Anything Google can answer. Don't come and ask me. But get to the level where you've asked Google those easy to answer questions, and you're now more thinking about, well, how does this all fit in together, right? How does this fit in together for what it is that we want to accomplish? So it's like you coming to ask me, what are the types of careers? I can answer you and tell you the 3 types, but that doesn't help you, because what you really want to know is, what is the importance of knowing the types of careers for me? So get yourself to that level. And for me, that's the barest minimum, level 3. Okay, where you're saying, oh, I have noticed this. Should I do this or should I do that? You've asked a question, but you've asked a question that is meaningful and takes us closer to where we need to be in the scheme of things. Okay, and then you move on and on and on. You move to the level of presenting a point of view, to sharing a default, to sharing that and deadline. So if you notice, as you're going up, right, these are also places of autonomy and authority. So you're literally moving from just being a yes person to being the youngest person on the team, to being the person everybody gives instructions to and give orders to, right? To having a voice, which is what autonomy is. You have a voice, you have a say, you can determine how things go. So you might not have all the decision-making power, but you have some. Or at least when it comes to the work that is yours, you own it and you can determine how it goes. Okay? When you're researching something, very key, very important part. Again, please, where did I say we should be at? Level 3. Don't just say, oh, what are the career types? You Google it, you write it down, you come and give, and you're waiting to be told the next steps. But it's to always take the thing further, right? So you give what was asked for, but what was not also asked for and is relevant. Because if you actually did proper research, you would have most likely begun to see the relevance of the information and not just the information. So present that. Again, you got your instruction in 2D, give 3D work back. And you move on from that to also saying, beyond why is it relevant, why should we care? And so on and so forth. Okay, so those are the helpful tools. Have the right attitude. Learning and development is key, and don't take things personal. Have a high growth need strength. Okay, and then hard work. Be willing to sacrifice in your early career of your time to be on a developmental journey. Identify your gaps Don't do the comparison game. Identify your gaps and put yourself on a journey to identify your gaps, right? And your manager will be quite instrumental there, where you go have a conversation with your manager to say, this is my role in this company. How much am I matching up to that role? And let your manager work through those gaps with you. Okay, so that brings us to the end of this portion of the session. I have a book recommendation, right, which we will take at the end of the session. But okay, so that's that. Does anyone have any comments, any questions, anything you would like me to go over again? Or any highlights? Was there anything that resonated with you?